Welcome to a late IHP show with your 5D mystic Maria and some stories. We're going to continue chit-chatting about how amazing and fun it is to be yourself the smart way. And that's thanks to sciences and spirituality united. So as they come together to continue to prove that which even a Sadhguru knows, here he is, if you treat your tools, including your own body and mind, with reverence, every activity is a joyful and fruitful process. Thing is, you need to make sure first you have a body that's connected, so you do good resilience. Now, with that being said, we navigate our nervous system. That's our 5D collective of mystic, spiritual, mindful, living, loving people. So being yourself, it's the best advice that anyone can give you, because you actually understand that those who didn't have a child-centric environment are the only ones who don't want to be their self. Then we are not going to make them do anything, because you can't teach Pinocchio on Pinocchio's island to have sense, because they're going to reject it, as all my stories have shared with you. So with that being said, we're going to have some chit chat on, remember, we're complementary, the masculine, the feminine, we have our own. Awesome. So love is always present, and that's why Jesus, Holy Spirit, God, they're always present with me. I'm in communion with God, and he just reminds me not to judge my brothers and sisters, the ones who suffer, the humans who suffer, a waste of my fucking time. And Buddha and I have a thing, because I make fun of him because he sat under a tree, and now I'm like, dude, they're using your suffering stuff to pain point, drag, and do more of just spiritual bypassing. So when you have a Zen master who doesn't know how to do his own laundry because he's saying that he has tears that he doesn't know how to use he's not a grown up yet. I'm sorry to let you know. He doesn't know how to hug himself. I know how to hug myself. But if you do want an excuse for why not everyone might be able to move into this 5D frequency, Robert Sapolsky, with his book Determined, gives people a reason. He says there's no free will. Do you think you've been determined? I wonder, because I have self-awareness. So I started this new podcast series. You'll hear why, because I noticed my 3-year-old. And it's not a spiteful 16-year-old. It's an actual 3-year-old with a 16-year-old, because my child parts, they're friends. And it's okay. We don't want somebody to tell us what to do, Maria. And that's me having silly conversations with myself. And then God doesn't say anything because he knows I'm smart. I won't spite him, because I wouldn't spite the miracle that he gave me, this thing called life. Neil deGrasse confirms. So science confirms I'm a miracle, and so does God. And the ones who think we're a mistake, we're not a mistake. Actually, we're life, the biology of life. It's, you know what's amazing? It's that my embodied brain is optimized. But guess what? I know attachment science. So I'm smarter, not than the average bear. I listen to grown-ups that teach me. And so I remember that my mind interprets what my body has stored. And so by two smart human beings, Bezel van der Kolk with The Body Keeps a Score, and Lisa Feldman Barrett, I think is her last name or something like that, with The Mind Keeps the Count, I'm like, Maria is upset at somebody telling her when she has to eat, what she has to do. That sounds almost like I'm a child who's like, no, I don't want to do it. So due to the fact that I am known as Grumpy Bear since I was a kid, I'm like, okay, let's see what this nutritionist diet is all about, and if my body's going to thank me. I want to treat my mind and body with reverence. My mind is always treated with reverence, my body also, but according to the sciences, people don't know. I have what is it called? Not enough water in my body, and then I have bad fat or something like that, or it's bad calorie. I don't remember all the technical verbiage, and so that's the gist of it. You're gonna get to hear Maria's like, I don't want to do it. Are you happy now? Because you know how many people think that I'm supposed to be suffering life right now, or that I'm pretending to be happy. Like, okay, people, you don't realize what a miracle is, right? You don't realize like how lucky I am. I don't understand why you don't know why I'm smiling. Oh, if only. So whatever comes your way, yes, whether you handle life consciously or unconsciously, it determines the nature, context, and quality of your life. So I don't have cracked foundations, just so you know. The ones who do, they have solutions. If they don't want them, I can't give them a solution. It's called getting out of hell in their body, not mine. And so with that being said, Christ consciousness is because Jesus taught me how to walk a walk and talk a talk. I make fun of Buddha just because he sat under a tree, but I know what Buddha and Buddhism and all the psychology and all of it helps. But it doesn't help anyone if they're spiritual bypassers who don't know how to use their prefrontal cortex yet. The ones who have said you've been determined, well, they've just given you the answer to why we have so many biologically rude people who are on Pinocchio's island, which is why the worst case scenario is Gargamel in the corner. That's our bad guy in Maria's stories. There's always going to have, no, there's no bad guy, but if you need one, there's Gargamel with a little smoke of cloud and Smurfs attack. That's exactly how it works for when it comes to the stories. I do have the archangels and ascended masters with me, don't worry, the galactic beings. I'm just having fun with the stories that I also know, because you don't want to be mean to children who had the short end of the stick. So love is not about somebody. Love is not an act. Love is the way you are. Yes, when you can know how to be yourself. So be yourself the smart way. If you knew you only had one more day to live, would you still argue with your spouse, snap at your child, carry resentment? You know, it's nice, Sadhguru. Thank you for your questions. People that don't actually know how to live as their true self, they can pretend to use these words. They actually are not yet in the capacity. That's why I love you, Patrick Tiahan. I'm sure you won't ever come to my stuff because I'm a woo-woo pseudoscience lady, but Patrick Tiahan, he gives answers. There's a hostile doomsdayer, doer, ghost, and are we good, I think. And those are 5 childhood trauma type survivors. He has videos on why your CPTSD isn't getting better. And then there's a bunch of people who walk around with it. And then he shares why people who have had childhood trauma, they can sometimes feel pain, cynicism, and negativity when they see children receiving a healthy childhood. So when they are seeing a child being coddled, they balk. They get charged emotions around fairness, like seeing a toddler getting their way in a restaurant. Yes, and I've seen people do this, and they think they know how to teach manners while they're not teaching manners to anyone. They're actually getting charged at that which is something that they don't understand. The child has a nervous system that you get to a third to attune and repair ruptures. And basically, if they're not in any physical danger, it's okay if they're rowdy. They're not, they're children. And one of the things I love about my bicultural nature is that the Neapolitans let their kids run wild. That means they're not suppressing the so-called 3-year-old energy of a poor child, who instead, whenever you go to any of these other places, you see they're like little statues. And if they move 1 inch or start screaming, they get in their ears whispered things that are not nice to whisper, and they get held in ways that are unnecessary. And that causes, we don't know, because every body is different. So with that, that's why you don't actually have a one size fits all when it comes to people who want to, if they do, heal their childhood trauma, great, with good therapists, and then people want to continue doing emotional and personal intelligence, mental intelligence growth. So with that, I luckily didn't get in any way, shape, or form treated like shit. So when I see a kid in a restaurant, they might bug me, but I would never want to see what I have seen with men who, if I only could be a very big monster, but I'm not, because that's how it works. God gives us free will. As a mystic, I'm talking about, and as a human, I'm grounded in reality. So thankfully, we have people like Patrick Tiahan, charged emotions at recognizing development, because some people had to make their lunch at the age of 6. Who can't make their lunch? How dare you not know how to make your lunch? You're supposed to know how to make, yeah, you're 8, now make your lunch. Okay. Teaching how to make lunch different than basically reacting as if a kid is supposed to know things. Like you forgot that they don't know things, and then that their brain is made differently. So it's not about, again, making it all about this, but seeing families be child-centric. When you grew up in an adult-centric, they came first, or just basically adultifying children. So yes, all the innocence of the poor children being taken away from them, and then seeing your step or your own children having it so easy. I love you, Patrick. Thank you so much for what you do. So I definitely don't get charged. I can get frustrated with children, but I adore seeing that they have more knowledgeable parents when it comes to how to raise them. And when it comes to those people who actually are 3D, 4D, they're on Pinocchio's island, so they can have fun as they continue to do that. In the meantime, what I can tell you is that neuroscience and neurobiology is replicable, the data. And you heard the funny stories of the people who told me they're going to stay on Pinocchio's island. So there's no need for us to actually spot them, point them out, because it isn't a fun journey to have a cracked foundation. I have compassion. I'm just not giving a green or red pass. So the part about what I have noticed on YouTube land is you got a bunch of cheerleaders and or basically Braveheart stick people who think that they're completely healed. I, on the other hand, know that I am healed with my child parts, but they still come up and complain about shit. And that's why I get irritated with all the betrayers and liars and cowards. But they're not Lucifers. Like I said, at best, they're Gargamel with a big cloud. That's it. Okay, so as we continue with a little bit of chit chat, being yourself the smart way means we're all flawed and imperfect. Those are functional child adults. And then we take seriously leaving a legacy so that the future generations can look to the past and know what works. What works is that neuroscience, neurobiology proves your body connected is your health. Then everything else will follow. And that's why when it comes to my personal subjective journey, I have had it very easy. Being focused on what's right for you from the heart and being yourself the smart way leads to success and your best life. With the body, the brain, the mind, the heart, the self in harmony, like I have. So use your human name. As science and spirituality shows, there's no failure. I have not failed one day of my life because aesthetics and external is not what you're going to succeed with. Leaving a legacy to our future generations means you leave something tangible. And when I know that science proves what spirituality has done without science, I know exactly what all of our ancestors with all the different books, because see, what true spirituality enlightened ones know is that we don't use books to talk about it. Meaning that they served their time, and as we move forward, we actually continue to share the stories with fun. They're not shared. How dare you dishonor? Are you putting books on pedestals? Because that's what it sounds like. Are you telling me all these spiritual books are truer than all these spiritual books? And all these, do you realize it's all blah, 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 because it's not quantitatively repeatable, while science quantitatively repeatable. I look forward to when Stephen Porges will have proven or disproven. Science knows how to show you what works and doesn't work, which is why I like the Thomas Campbell guy. So he had to use different words. Why? Because he's like, I don't want people to fight. I'm using all the words. Because who owns spirituality? Excuse me? I didn't realize that it was owned, but that's the part, it's not owned. So when you meet any spiritual bypasser, they have the perfect whatever they want to talk to you about, magical baton. When you meet those who are in communion with God and Source and Akash and Anima Mundi and all of the Ascended Masters, and you name it, you will see that they will not be telling you they have a perfect anything. They will also not be against science because they will know enough about that which is their brain and be a clear vessel to be able to hear the words of grown-ups the right way. Because that's what it means when you're smart. You're stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. So you don't fight information because there's nothing to fight. You don't feel competitive with books. You don't think one story is truer than the other. You don't disrespect any of our angels, archangels stories because you know they're all true. For the people who wrote them, for the people who follow them, and then you know that the ones who are actually arguing about which one is the better, it's like Cinderella and her stepsisters. And you know, when you hear people talking about stepchildren, this human being man who actually made it his mission, or the woman, to say, yeah, of course they're being treated differently. I am going to say that anyone who is a person who loves with a whole self will know that all people, step or not, in family, it's not about blood or not blood. Okay, so when people know how it feels to be a human, they won't think of human beings and step or not step. Like, this is the most oddest thing that I ever came to see in the world of my bicultural nature. People who actually love each other less and think there's different treatment. And I'm like, that's what? But I'm a twin. So this is where love is not a 1, a 2, a 3. And then I realized that's because I'm not competitive, because I wouldn't compete with my twin. I'll tell you a story. I'll never forget. Because we have had twin people in our lives. And I remember one set that would actually completely be so like competitive and like, I don't even know, like mean girls to each other. And I'm like, yeah, try touching me. I'm going to rat you out right now. But that was basically just because I was annoying. However, my twin would never do any kind of harm to me like these two were doing. And others I've seen that become like basically an ensemble, so it's nice to see that we're differentiated selves and we have different personality patterns, and that we still do the same things that we did when we were kids, which is fight like cats and dogs and then love each other like my other younger sister and my mom. So when you have a family, it doesn't matter if it's 100% or half or not, like even with cousins. And so again, family for some people who are about the words, like, what are you doing? That feels so not human. And that's why I'm sad for that cynic who's like, I just want to be aware that it's about what is right, not what feels right, because that human being actually thinks it's not possible for someone to just start crying all of a sudden because they get touched. Like they commented people crying on screen, and they don't like people who connect with people from the heart, which tells me that they don't know how to cry. They got a blocked tear duct and they don't know what it's like to connect from the heart, which tells me that's just so sad. Guess who follows them? All the cynic frequency, because that's exactly the only people are going to get to thrive off that. They have resentment, they could all be healed. Can't make them go. They think enlightenment is a trap, by the way, and then they pick on all of the people who are cheering each other on, which I mean, granted. When you're cheering each other on, it's like, okay, cheerleaders, you done? Because seriously, what are you cheering now? We got flat earthers cheering each other on. Could we cheer, common sense? Anyone want to get common sense going? Okay, so as a 5D mystic, let me call on some common sense. The word of wisdom diffuses conflict and provides clarity. So everyone has subjective experiences. The objective stuff is quantitative analysis. Please let yourself be aware. I am an academic at heart, and I don't like the ones who get in their black and white thinking, which is why the minute they begin, I learned as a teenager what I'm going to do. Nothing. I don't want to argue with you. I'm not arguing, and I'm not doing homework, and this is not a report. I'm done with you. In the media, that's it. People think I avoid it. Yes, on purpose. And so that's how it works, because if you are intellectually curious, and entrepreneurially speaking I have no time to waste with those who are closed-minded, limited, obtuse, ignorant, giving me their dogma and doing it in a very unfun way. I can go read about their dogma in their books. So I can read all about it, and that way I'm going to have a fun time, and I'm going to bring in the golden nuggets, and I create more. That's how it works when you have an abundant brain, because you're like, okay, who's competing with what again? What words? Which words? There's more words. They're already created. So that's how an integrated brain works, of a child who loves to learn things, by the way. So as a mystic, the oversoul is really beautiful and it's really fun, and God is amazing. He's perfect. Everything he does is perfect, okay? So let me just tell you why he's so perfect. Because, so I have this thing called I'm very stubborn. Maria, does anybody have any questions? Aren't we all, right? Yeah, okay. The difference is I do know how to admit when I'm wrong, which is not everybody's capacity. So for the longest time, as a 5D mystic, knowing all about our oversoul and knowing about ascended masters as a downloader, you name it, and all my past lives, as I got more information, more, I get finally attachment trauma educated. And that's when I'm like, okay, thanks God, you did a good thing. Because usually you'll hear the people who are basically helpless in their brain, who don't know how to do the right thing because they don't take care of themselves, tell you. So let me tell you what an empowered feminine, who is also her own empowered masculine, will have to say about any of those who are called masculines. They're not men. No, it's any person who doesn't own their body, so they lack self-awareness, accountability, regulation. And that means they don't own their child parts. And then it means they don't use their prefrontal. So they don't have RESH, just so you're clear. They don't have the securely attached, non-traumatized 0-1-year-old version, so they don't know how to clear their mind, and they don't know how to sit in their body and remember we're humans. Okay, so they don't know how to be friendly to anyone except for whatever it is, the bullshit that comes up from their thoughts. And I know the bullshit that comes up from my thoughts, which is why I take accountability, ownership, and then I say, look, but I'm still, like I said, I'm a convinced human being when I go at it. I have learned to pause, but that doesn't mean I'm not going all in. Okay, so when you meet empowered people, that's the nice part, because you get to have what are called face-offs, which aren't really face-offs. They're more like dances. Oh, those dances. They're a nice tango dance, by the way, because as you get emotionally and mentally intelligent, it's just amazing. So you have a partner. That's the nice thing. It's not a push and pull from drama queens and drama kings. It's a tango. Tangos are passionate, okay? And they get more passionate as you learn to tango together and when you're with the right partner, which is why, by the way, the whole twin flame, divine part, all those words, just put in the trash. Not because the twin flame isn't a real partnership or a real connection. It is, but throw them in the trash for what you've heard out there in saga world. Because they're all not empowered. An empowered feminine and masculine, might I add, there's no testing that goes on. The only people who test each other are the people who are not aware of what love is. It's what you are. So love is easy, love is kind, love is honest, love is transparent, love is authentic, and love knows how to have a functional child-adult conversation, which is always going to be fun. There's no mood that comes into the room that pisses anybody off in a way of being all resentful or upset, because we got 24 hours. We're going to go to sleep as little angels do with smiles on our faces, because we don't need to be petty little fools. Do you see what I'm saying? So empowered people, it's not even about sovereignty. It's your smart common sense. These are words I'm going to use, but that's because I have a solid foundation. So love never got hard. It only gets easier as you grow up and you continue to know what it's made of. It's made of two people, say death do part, sickness and health, all those words. And then they do it first with themselves, and then they can bring it into the table. It's being yourself the smart way. Science, spirituality, they come together. They don't divide each other. Nothing is divisive. Okay, so empowered feminine don't get tested by no masculine. You better bet that. Like empowered masculine don't get tested by no feminine, distorted. That's the part of why anyone who is still using those words is a person that doesn't know. If you're watching your fucking back and testing people, you want to go and work with Patrick Tian so you can fix that which is called insecurity, because you don't have a good gut, like Gabor Mate would point out. Okay, so when you got 10 ways to watch your fucking back, I wouldn't be following that. I'd be going to therapy instead of doing that. But there's the people who, like I've told you stories, want Pinocchio's Island. So on Pinocchio's Island, they are, and therefore they follow their 3D, 4D. What I'm going to close on out with is that whether it's teenage boyfriend, twin flames, or any of that, because your oversoul is made of a bunch of people that you will have met, you will not be leaving people out to dry like my facade friend because they have emotionally immature manners, which are the biologically root insecurities. You will also not think of testing anything, because these are relationships that you care about. And so when I realized that I was kept away for a very specific reason, in a very specific way, it's because I know Maria and I know exactly what I'm capable of when I think I have someone in front of me who I think has a solid foundation, and who today I know that if there's any crack, even just one little one, that's an attachment wound, that I, like my facade friend who looks at me like that, but he can handle me because he knows me, then I now know how to not do this shit with anyone. I don't have the right to speak in a certain way in the face of a person who has a broken heart, not because of their wanting it, but because they were not gifted that which is a childhood and a child-centering environment. So I will follow with integrity and morality that which I got taught, which is why when someone wants to tell me that they know who God is and then they don't know how to forgive, you obviously don't know who God, Jesus, or Holy Spirit are yet, because you don't know it with yourself, and therefore you also don't know it with all of humanity. So when you look at the whole evil stuff, it's all on a Michael Stone forensic criminologist scale. They all end up in prison. Luckily, therapists will be in good prisons, and good therapists, not the bad ones. Neuroscience, neurobiology is replicable, and if there's one thing that humanity loves to do is evolve and expand. Therefore, they're not going against the flow state. Vanity metrics. The difference is vanity don't do shit because your essence is what matters. But you could look good, and in the meantime, what trends because it's working, not because it's just a fad. And well-being, it works when you're doing body connected, being yourself. And people, they all deserve love, which is the other thing that you learn as teenagers. People just vicious after breakups. What is wrong with you? I thought you said you loved them. Polyamory community, the ones who know what love is, we're not unfaithful or masochists. And like monoamory community who know what love is, which is why It's beautiful to see that there's grown-ups who teach children and young adults and teenagers what love is. And it isn't about you fucking anyone, by the way, STDs. It's also not about you having to become a monk or whatever, you know. So at the end of the day, moderation. The people who care about what they do will explain to you things, and they will share with you the information. And that's why science and spirituality come together. They continue to prove that your well-being is when you own the sense of self, you have an integrated brain, you get to be that which you are, and you get to understand that information consistently builds. The stories of our ancestors served when science wasn't there to prove certain things. Now science explains all of the bad habits of people out there, so we don't need to call it monsters. And anybody who wants to use words to create stories don't understand that that continues to dehumanize, to distance, and to create little groups. And little groups are not what we are. We are humans. So while we have already people who are doing something that is divisive, the ones of us who are 5D are not divisive. We bring harmony because, again, we can handle with emotional maturity, discerning, equanimous, loving. Thanks God, that's called you forgive, you turn the cheek, you pick people up. You know that as long as you're physically safe, that's good. Emotionally, our hearts and minds are not bothered by those who need pats on the back or would want pats on the back. It's called ventral vagal state. And empathic boundaries and some sympathetic, no, not sympathetic, what is it called? The sympathetic dorsal vagal is the modulated embodiment. It's the ventral vagal state. So ventral energy. We will be back with more. Have a good one.